Hi everybody, it's Katie back with another episode of my vlog, and of course it's Sunday, so it's time for the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. Kind of funny, we had a little bit of a theme for the beginning of the week and the end of the week this time. We started out with Kung Fu movies, and then as soon as we hit October, we changed over to horror movies, specifically classic Universal Pictures monster movies. So let's start with the Kung Fu from earlier in the week and then ease on into our October theme of course, spooky movies for October. A little announcement up front. We did make a Cinema Club watch list for October. It is the list of the movies that we are going to be watching all month long. It's pretty cool. It's a mix of movies and animation spanning from 1929 all the way up to this year. So check it out. I'm going to go ahead and put a link down below and you guys can check out what our watch list is for this month. You'll have to catch up a little bit if you want to watch along with us, but that's not that big of a deal. And there's lots of fun ones on there, mostly safe for kids. There are a few that are a little bit more mature, but our list is like probably 95% totally okay for kids movies. So, but before we get to the October movies, we'll just back up a little bit and tell you guys that we started the week last Sunday with Disciples of the 36th Chamber from 1985. Of course, this is the third movie in the loose trilogy of the 36th Chamber movies. It is Gordon Liu returns. He's actually reprising a similar role that he played in the previous movie. Only this time he's actually not the lead in the movie. I can't remember the name of the lead actor, but he's like a teenager he's really good at Kung Fu, but he's a troublemaker and he doesn't do well in school. And so his mom sends him off to the 36th Chamber of the Shaolin Temple so that he can learn some, respect and real Kung Fu and all this other stuff. The main antagonists, once again, are a group of Manchus, and they basically try to trick our hero into teaching them all of the secrets of Shaolin Kung Fu through a bunch of different interesting kind of nefarious plot angles that, once again, I'm not going to say too much about. It's the third movie in this series, and it doesn't hold up quite as well as the first two. It's still very fun, enjoyable. If you dig Kung Fu movies and you've never seen this one, I would definitely check it out. But it's not going to be the top of my recommendation list for anybody. But it's a real solid mid-80s Shaw Brothers Kung Fu movie. So check that out if you guys are into that stuff. Now, speaking of the Shaw Brothers, while I was looking up titles for our October list, I ran across Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires from 1974. I had never heard of this movie before, and I was so shocked when I found out about it. I immediately said, I don't care what's on the list for tonight. We're watching it tonight. You guys, this is a collaboration between the Shaw Brothers studio and the Hammer Studio out of England. So it's a Shaw Brothers Kung Fu movie crossed with a traditional Hammer horror movie. The movie opens up in 1804, I think. I might have that wrong. But early 1800s in Transylvania, and there is a Chinese, like a Taoist monk who has come to Dracula's castle to seek his help with not resurrecting, but there are these 7 golden vampires back in China that aren't doing too well. And so this Taoist monk is like part of the monastery where they look after the 7 golden vampires. And so he's come out to Transylvania to seek Dracula's help with getting them whatever it is that they need so that they can be the best vampires that they can be. Dracula agrees to go, but only if he can take the form of the monk's body. So initially the monk is actually speaking in Chinese and you've got subtitles. But then once Dracula does the kind of presto changeo switch around, you have the Chinese actor playing the monk, but then he's been dubbed with the British actor who was playing Dracula. So that's the speaking voice that he has for the rest of the movie. And it's a pretty cool gimmick. Then he heads off to China to go deal with these 7 golden vampires. And then we fast forward 100 years into the future, and we have Peter Cushing playing Professor Von Helsing, who is teaching at a university in China. And his whole area of expertise is like Chinese vampire myths. So some locals come up and they tell him about what's going on with the 7 golden vampires. And of course, Dr. Van Helsing has to get involved and go off and pursue these 7 golden vampires and, challenge them and see what's up. Again, I don't want to say too much about what happens, but man, this is a really, really, really fun one. If you are a fan of Hammer horror, if you are a fan of Kung Fu movies, it's just like a perfect blend of the two of them. It's a little bit cheesy in parts, but that's what you expect kind of from both of these studios. But it's just such a cool way to blend the two genres together. And the 7 golden vampires themselves have really, really cool character designs and costume designs. They all wear these like golden half masks covering the top halves of their faces. But beneath the masks, they have like distorted, rotted faces or like bulging eyes, all kinds of nasty makeup effects going on there. It's just pretty incredible. So we found out about it and watched it all in the same day and thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, seeing Peter Cushing in a Kung Fu movie is pretty amazing. Again, if you're a fan of Hammer horror, if you're a fan of Shaw Brothers Kung Fu, you're going to like this movie, I think. Legend of the 7 Golden Vampires, again, from 1974. Check that one out. And that concluded September for us, and we immediately moved into October with, again, our Cinema Club Halloween watch list. We have a tradition around here. We always start the month of October with Frankenstein and end the month of October with Dracula. I'm talking about the 1931 Universal Pictures movies. It's a great kind of bookends for the month. We actually are starting our whole watch list with the rest of the Universal monster movies, excepting Dracula. We always save Dracula for the very end because it's our family tradition to watch it on Halloween night, kind of either in the background while we're waiting for trick-or-treaters, or maybe after we've gone trick-or-treating and we want to, eat a bunch of candy and kind of mindlessly sit there and whatever. That's when we watch Dracula. So, but that's a month from now. So what did we watch this week? We watched Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man, all from the 1930s, all directed by the same guy, James Whale, and with a lot of the same actors shared between the movies, which was pretty fun. But let's go in order here, and we'll start right at the top with Frankenstein. If you have not seen the 1931 Frankenstein starring Boris Karloff as the monster, you are required to watch this movie. It is absolutely required viewing, I think, for any member of Cinema Club, any fan of film at all, any fan of horror film at all, and just in general, it's an incredible movie. It is just required viewing. Don't really know what else to say besides that. You have Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein, and again, Boris Karloff as the monster in his completely iconic role. He, of course, has been in lots of other movies and starred as lots of other characters, but this is like the one that, just cemented in everyone's mind around this one guy. And he does it incredibly well. The movie's almost 90 years old. It holds up so well, you guys. It's unbelievable. The dramatic scenes are still just as dramatic as they were 89 years ago. The special effects are incredible. The creation scene, the electrical effects in that scene, they're unreal. They are so good and they are so far ahead of their time. It's really awesome. And it's really awesome to be able to watch them again almost 90 years later and go, I couldn't actually improve on it that much right now. There's so many iconic scenes in this movie. Again, the creation scene where the power of lightning and electricity is harnessed to shock the monster to life. Of course, everyone knows that scene, even if you've never seen the movie. Colin Clive as the doctor saying, "It's alive, it's alive." Everybody knows that scene, right? But there's some other great iconic scenes. Also, the scene where he inadvertently murders a little girl, totally on accident. Apparently, that scene was cut from the movie for many decades. This movie came out before the Hays Codes were enacted, and then after the codes went into place, it was edited. And apparently the edited version does not include the scene where the monster drowns the little girl. It was considered too crazy for audiences of the time to be able to watch. Lucky for us, when the movie was restored in the 1980s, that scene was put back in. It's a pretty important scene in terms of the story of the movie. I don't know how the movie makes much sense if you don't have that scene there, but there you go. And then, of course, in addition to the iconic creation scene, there is also the iconic end scene of the movie, the denouement, where the villagers all pick up their pitchforks and their torches and run up to the windmill to go get the monster who killed this little girl. I'm not going to say how that one ends, although I think on a 90-year-old movie at this point, you know, whatever about spoilers. But this movie is just incredible. And again, if you've never watched it, I invite you to watch it. It is just such an amazing total package deal and such an amazing piece of American film history. It's very, very important. You guys should see it. If you haven't seen it recently, watch it again. It's incredible. I never get tired of watching this movie. But speaking of the incredible movie Frankenstein from 1931, it also has one of the greatest sequels ever made, The Bride of Frankenstein from 1935. Again, also directed by James Whale, also starring Boris Karloff as the monster and Colin Clive as the doctor. This movie adds in, of course, Elsa Lanchester in the title role as the Bride of Frankenstein. She also plays Mary Shelley. At the very beginning of the movie, there's kind of an intro scene where we have her hanging out with Percy and Lord Byron and talking about the story that she wrote. And she says, well, there's more to the story, so here it is, as kind of the intro into the second movie. Then we get a tiny little reprise of the ending of the first movie, just to kind of catch you up to where we are. But this movie really starts right where the first movie leaves off. We're at the ruins of the burned windmill. We have all of the villagers milling around, hoping that the monster was killed, wondering if the doctor was killed. It's a very powerful opening scene because there's a lot of confusion about what's going on. And of course, as we all know, the monster has not been killed and is still very much alive. He's just down in the basement underneath the wrecked windmill and eventually comes out and starts causing chaos again. I will note this opening scene of the second movie has Una O'Connor featured pretty prominently as one of the villagers from the town, and she is absolutely hilarious and totally steals the scene with her kind of hysterical overacting every time she sees a monster or has to tell people about the monster or basically interact with anyone else in the movie. And then she comes back in The Invisible Man. We see her again in that movie, which we watched the next night after this one. It's pretty cool. I think the kids didn't realize how the studio system worked back in the day and how many of these actors are being kind of recycled and shared between the various movies. But it's pretty cool to be able to watch them and spot faces and go, oh, I remember that guy. I remember that guy. So speaking of which, Dr. Frankenstein's assistant is not named Igor in either of these movies. He's actually called Fritz in the first movie, and he's called Carl in the second movie, but both Fritz and Carl are played by the same actor whose name is Dwight Fry. So that's a pretty interesting little tidbit. He doesn't actually become known as Igor until I think the third or fourth movie in the series. There are a lot of Frankenstein movies that Universal came out with. They had a hot property on their hands, and boy, they just kept on making those movies. But yeah, nobody's named Igor in the first two movies at all. The second movie also sees the addition of Dr. Pretorius, who is, I believe he's Dr. Frankenstein's mentor. And he's like, you know, Dr. Frankenstein is like one level of crazy of wanting to create life from dead people. Dr. Pretorius is like, takes it to even another level and keeps pushing Dr. Frankenstein to kind of get wilder with his playing God and his creations that he makes. When he first shows up in Dr. Frankenstein's house, he brings a set of, I guess they're homunculi, miniature people in jars. And there's a very cool scene where he shows off all of the little miniature people that he's made. And again, this movie is almost 90 years old. The special effects on the little people in the jars, it looks so cool. Yeah, you can tell it's special effects from the 1930s, but it's not distracting. And it, all you have to do is just use a little bit of imagination, not even that much, and it gets you right to where you need to be to believe that these are real little people in jars that this doctor has created, which is pretty wild. The second movie has a bunch of iconic scenes as well. It has kind of smack in the middle of the movie is the scene where the monster meets up with the old blind hermit who's living on his own in a cabin, playing the violin, and he is the one who teaches the monster how to talk. Apparently Karloff objected to having a speaking role, and he felt like the role was stronger without any dialogue, but it's pretty fun. And a little funny, so I guess I kind of agree with him, but I like it when the monster speaks. The old man teaches him to smoke and teaches him that smoke is good, and he teaches him the word friend and that friends are good. And so then you have the monster saying, smoke, good, friend, good, which is funny and does actually crack the seriousness of the movie. But I think it's fun to watch this movie with a smile on your face. There's also, of course, the totally iconic creation scene of the Bride of Frankenstein. That takes place at the very end of the movie. You got to hang in there for a long time before you finally get to see the bride, but boy, is it worth it when she finally shows up. And I won't tell you ultimately what happens at the very end of the movie, because once again, I want to encourage you guys to watch this movie. It is incredible. It holds up incredibly well, and it's really fun to watch it kind of, maybe not back to back, but we watched them one after the other 2 days in a row with the original Frankenstein. Then the third night out of our October listing, we went for The Invisible Man from 1933, again directed by James Whale. Boy, he was all over those Universal monster movies. This movie is starring Claude Rains in a role where you don't get to see him at all until the last minute of the movie. And it's pretty incredible. He delivers an astounding performance for being someone that you don't see at all. I was actually trying to think if there's any other movie that's not like animation or puppetry where you have someone deliver such an amazing performance and you don't get to see them at all while they're acting. You can't see their face. It's pretty great. So, of course, The Invisible Man is based on the novel by H.G. Wells, and it is the story of yet another mad scientist who is messing around with invisibility and figuring out how to turn himself invisible. And, of course, he does it. And he doesn't realize until after he's done it that he actually doesn't want to be invisible, because there's a whole host of problems that come along with being an invisible man. And he is spending the movie trying to get back. That's what he keeps talking about. There has to be a way back to being visible. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to him, the drug that he's used in his special concoction that's made him invisible has also made him crazy. And so he is a total maniac. He is ego tripping and power tripping through the whole movie. He knows how much power he has as an invisible man. All he has to do is take his clothes off, and then he can wreak havoc on everyone. And that's basically his plan. He's just like, world domination with a few murders along the way, whatever, I'm going to go do it. He actually winds up being, to me, the scariest of all the Universal monsters. He's kind of the most believable and the scariest at the same time, maybe because he's the most believable, but he is just such an awful, maniacal character, and Claude Rains really plays him really well. This is another movie where the special effects have held up incredibly well. They obviously are doing some stuff with wires. They obviously are doing some stuff where they're shooting the actor wearing like a matte black velvet suit with a matte black background so that they can then go back in and cut him out. Things have a little bit of a kind of a sharp edge around them sometimes, but again, squint your eyes, turn on just a little bit of your imagination, and you're right there. It's not jarring or stopping you from enjoying the movie in any way. And again, the special effects don't really stand out in a bad way. They stand out in a really good way. They're pretty amazing. It's just a great movie overall. I will note the kids spotted there is at least one mistake in the movie. Towards the end of the movie, he is outside and he's naked because he's running from the authorities. And they can see where he's gone because he's left footprints in the snow. And the footprints in the snow are shoe footprints, not bare feet footprints. And the kids immediately were like, shouldn't there be toes or something on those footprints? So good eye on their part. But other than that, the movie's pretty technically tight. Plot-wise, it's very tight. Acting is great. Oh, and again, Una O'Connor, who played the kind of hysterical villager in The Bride of Frankenstein, shows up in The Invisible Man as the innkeeper's wife at the place where the Invisible Man is just trying to like do his experiments and not be disturbed by anyone. And she keeps barging into his room to like bring him food or bring him whatever. And he gets more and more pissed off at her until he actually assaults her at one point. But she's fantastic in her role. And I have a feeling she's fantastic in every role she gets. I really dig her as an actress. So that's about it for the little first 3 of our Halloween marathon. We are going to be watching The Wolfman tonight, and then I believe we have The Mummy up next after that, and then The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Once we have moved our way through that handful of Universal Pictures monster movies, we're going to be kind of twisting our way through history and watching a bunch of different spooky movies from a bunch of different eras. I have some cool stuff from the 50s and 60s. I have some cool stuff from the 80s, 90s, even a little bit from the 2000s. I think you guys should check out the list. There's a lot of really fun stuff on there. And again, you know, if everything on there isn't what you want to watch, don't watch all of it. But, you know, join us for the ones that you do like the sound of. I guarantee you they're all good movies. So that's it from me for now. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put that list linked down below. Please check it out. Please let me know what you guys have been watching this week. Please let me know what you guys have lined up for your spooky October viewing. I always want to hear what you guys are watching. And of course, this month is a great one because everybody busts out their horror lists. We watch horror all year round around here, but I'd love to see your lists. So let me know what you guys are watching. I'll be back in a few more days with another episode of my vlog. And until then, stay safe, take care, and thanks so much for watching.